In today's video, I'm going to discuss some gunsmithing tools used for building AR-type rifles. I'm going to talk specifically about one tool, mainly because I've fielded a lot of questions about the tools and the process for using the tools and so on. So I figured I'd make a video covering the tools, and I'd also highlight a new tool that I just recently purchased. So what we're looking at here are castle nut wrenches. These are the wrenches used to torque down the castle nut that connects your buffer tube to your upper receiver. Now, the top one shown here is a GunTech. I did a review of this. It is a multifunctional tool. So it's not just a castle nut tool. It also does your barrel nut, and it will do your you can install your flash hider or your muzzle brake with it. So it has multiple functions. So this would be used for your barrel nut. This is a 1/2-inch opening used for your torque wrench, so you can apply torque to either your castle nut or your barrel nut. These are for the your muzzle brake. I never did quite figure out what those 3 holes were for, and nobody in my previous video was able to enlighten me on that, so I still don't know what those are. And then of course this is for your castle nut here, and you'll notice this one only has a single pin right here. Well, maybe you can or can't see that. A single pin, and it can be tricky to use this tool on your castle nut. You've got to make sure that the single pin doesn't pop out. This tool works pretty good if you're using a end plate like the Magpul ASAP or the Troy, something that takes a QD connector, a big kind of bulky end plate. Because if you have a bulky end plate, you can't really use one of these conventional tools. So it can get kind of problematic to get the proper torque on your castle nut if you're using one of those types of end plates. So this is the GunTech. So I use this for different types of installations, and then I also have this is a lesser expensive steel tool that I believe Tapco makes this one, and it also is kind of a multifunction tool because you can do your flash hiders or your muzzle brakes with this portion, and then of course this is for your castle nut. And some people have asked me about what this is for, and this is actually for removal and installation of buffer tubes on the AR rifle. Most people don't, when they're going out to buy an AR, they look at the carbine style with the collapsible stock. They're not normally buying a rifle. So this is actually for the rifle buffer tube. It is not for doing torque, because a 1/2-inch torque wrench will not work in that hole. And that's the big downside with this particular tool, is there's no way to use this tool to get the proper torque on your castle nut. So I use this for actually removing castle nuts for the most part. I also have it in case I'm working on a rifle. So I'm going to have multiple tools that overlap in their functionality, and they'll have different purposes. This tool right here with the 1/2-inch hole is definitely a must, so you can get the proper torque on your barrel nuts and on your castle nut. Now with this tool, now the drawback with this, which I haven't mentioned in any other videos, but you can see where the hole is here for your torque wrench, and then of course for doing your barrel nut. This is a good close location. So when you set your torque wrench for 30 foot-pounds or 40 foot-pounds of torque, the amount of torque that you actually apply to the bolt is going to be pretty close to spot on. The further you get away from your bolt location, the torque is going to change because you're adding difference, or you're adding a distance. And of course, if you're not familiar with how levers work, it's kind of the same concept. So this is great for applying torque to a barrel nut. But now when we start talking about the castle nut, you can see how far away the castle nut is from where my torque location is. So a lot of times, although I don't mention it in the videos, I change my torque setting to kind of offset this this issue. So this isn't an ideal tool by any means. You know, what it should have is it should have another 1/2 inch hole right down here. That way you can put your torque wrench, you know, much closer to where the castle nut is. So when we're talking torque specifications, a lot of the torque specifications for building an AR come from the military technical manual. And the military technical manual will list a torque setting, and that torque setting takes into consideration the tool that they're using. Not this type of a tool, the tool they're using. So I'll get to that in a moment. For anybody building an AR, there's lots of reference material on the internet and lots of videos on YouTube. But what I always tell people to do is go to Google and Google the M4 technical manual. You can find these online and you can download them, and it's the military technical manual, sort of an armorer's manual. Talks about specifications, how to assemble, disassemble, how to repair, types of grease to use, torque settings, and so on and so on. So it's an invaluable resource that you can use for building or disassembling your rifle. Now, if you download the M4 technical manual, like I mentioned, and you look up the castle nut and you read about the castle nut, you probably will see a torque setting of 40 inch-pounds. That is an error in the technical manual, and that has been fixed in later versions of the technical manual. The proper torque specifications for the castle nut are 40 foot-pounds of torque. So I'm just going to throw that out there real quick, because if you guys run out and you download it, and you'll see that. And you know, it's already been pretty much beaten to death out there in the gunsmithing world that that was an oversight on their part. It's not. I've seen plenty of errors in military manuals, and it's surprisingly how long those errors will stay out there before they finally get a fix. So anyway, now I don't have a complete printout of the M4 technical manual, because this video isn't really about that. It's more or less about the castle nut tool. So what I did was I actually printed out one page, and you can see right there, my camera focuses in on it, you can see the technical manual. It's TM9-1005-319-23 ampersand and then a P. That's the actual number for the technical manual if you wanted to search by that number. And this is a single page out of the manual, and I printed this out because it actually shows a picture of the military tool used for doing the castle nuts. And you'll notice by looking at this that, you know, this isn't something you see Brownells selling or any of the other retailers out there. At least I've never seen one of these for sale anywhere, and trust me, I've looked every place that sells gunsmithing tools. And I've always, when I'm building an AR type rifle, I like to use the same tools that the military armorers use, that up to a certain point. Mainly because, like I said, their torque settings are based off of using this tool. And you can see where this half-inch hole is in relation to where the castle nut is. So they're right close to each other. So that makes this really, not an appropriate tool for putting torque on a castle nut. So this tool, further, there's another page in the technical manual which I printed out, and it shows item 12 right down here, and there's an NSN number, and it says wrench, spanner, blah blah blah, for M4 carbine, and so on. So from the technical manual, you can get this NSN number, which is the military part number, and you can Google that, and there's information out there on the internet about the wrench, the specifications, the material it's made out of, so on and so on. Problem is you can't find any for sale. That's the big problem. So I've never had the opportunity of getting one of these, and it seems to be that way with a lot of the military specific tools. And if you recall from my past videos, I talked about the headspace gauge, and because the military headspace gauge doesn't require removal of the ejector pin on the bolt, and the headspace gauges that are available to us, we have to remove that to get it to seat properly, and it's always been very frustrating. I've always been looking for the military field headspace gauge, and they're not out there, and nobody duplicates it and sells it, which I don't know, maybe it's legal reasons or copyrights or whatever. So anyway, try and get past these tools. What I wanted to show you was this. You can see this is some brown material. Of course, I've already opened it, and it's got military sticker on it. It's got a cage number and an NSN number, and it's a wrench, spanner, one each, etc., etc. So this is basically the military castle nut wrench that I showed you in the drawing. And this is how it ships in this little plastic bag, assuming you get one new, that is. And it comes in this brown material, which feels like a napkin or several layers of napkins. This is how they ship it. And there's the tool. You can see it's got 2 notches on it right there, and then of course it's got the half-inch hole for your torque wrench, and it's just a square piece of metal. But these are extremely difficult to find. I can't tell you how long I've been looking for these, and I actually just by accident came across somebody who had these, and he must have picked them up at some sort of a military surplus auction, and I bought a bunch of them. So I'll show you how it has to work as soon as I figure out where I put my buffer tube. I know I got a buffer tube around here. I guess I'll have to do some searching for a buffer tube and a castle nut. Alright, knew I had a buffer tube and castle nuts. So this is a mil-spec 6-position buffer tube made by Daniel Defense, and I'm just going to use for demonstration here. So it needs to go on like so, which is pretty obvious, and of course it'll slide down and then latch into place on your castle nut. And as you can see, there's definitely plenty of room for a torque wrench, which I happen to have here. Hopefully I don't knock anything over in the process. So if I attach my torque wrench like so, you can see we've got plenty of clearance on the torque wrench there. And this, by the way, this is not a high-end torque wrench. I use this for lug nuts. You can get these in numerous different places for $20–$30. They get the job done. You probably wouldn't want to drop this, or it's not going to last you forever. They're pretty inexpensive, but um, last time I ran into a Snap-on truck, I had them test my torque wrenches, and they were all within specs. So for the $20–$30, it's a pretty good thing to have around the shop. So anyway, that's how this particular tool works, and you know, it fits good, and it's has to come off the same way it went on. And I have not actually done a build using this tool yet, as I just got it and I was excited to show you guys the actual military castle nut tool and what it looks like. And if anybody's interested, I do have a few of these. I'm obviously going to keep a couple for myself, but I bought up all that I could because of the rarity of these. And if you need one of these for your gunsmithing toolbox, you can definitely leave me a comment, and I'll get back to you about it.